Imagine standing barefoot in the wild, nothing but wind, earth, and the low growl of something hunting nearby. Now imagine you're 9 months pregnant. Your back aches, your contractions have started, and there's no ambulance, no sterile hospital bed, no doctor, just you, a patch of cold ground, and a fire flickering against the rock wall of a cave. That was childbirth for tens of thousands of years, and yet, here we are. Every single one of us is here because someone survived that. The female body is an evolutionary miracle. Over millions of years, it adapted not just to bear life, but to endure the unbearable. The shape of the pelvis wide, but just narrow enough to support walking upright, was the first compromise. Humans are the only species that suffer this much during birth, and that's because of our big, intelligent brains. Evolution didn't make it easier, it just made it possible. But our ancestors weren't soft. From childhood, Stone Age girls were conditioned for pain, running, hunting, foraging, getting injured, healing. They didn't flinch. By the time labor came, their threshold was already sky high, and their minds, just as ready, without distraction, technology, or outside noise. Prehistoric people were incredibly in tune with their own bodies. They listened to instinct the way we listen to GPS. Pain was a compass. Breath was a guide. They didn't fight their bodies, they followed them. This wasn't just about strength. It was survival, and nature made sure the mothers who lived were the ones built to pass on that legacy. The tribal midwife, what you might picture. Most prehistoric women didn't give birth alone under a tree. They were surrounded, not by doctors, but by something far older, community. There was no official midwife, but every tribe had an elder woman, sometimes several, who had done this before. She had no textbook, no sterile gloves, no blood pressure cuff. What she had was wisdom passed down orally, stored in her memory, shaped by decades of witnessing birth in its rawest form. She knew how to read a mother's breath, the sound of a baby turning inside the womb, the pulse beneath the skin. She knew when to tell her to wait, when to tell her to push, and when to say goodbye. This woman was the village's lifeline. She was feared, respected, and trusted in equal measure. And her power wasn't just technical, it was emotional. She sang, she prayed, she held trembling hands. She reminded the mother that she wasn't alone. The entire process was steeped in ritual. Some tribes painted their bodies with ochre or ashes. Some sang ancient chants believed to call upon spirits. Others rubbed oils or herbs onto the mother's skin to reduce pain or protect against bad omens. These weren't superstitions. They were survival mechanisms, psychological anchors that made chaos feel sacred. And every tribe had their version. Some whispered the names of ancestors. Some told stories between contractions to calm the mother. Others created birthing circles, where other women gathered not to watch, but to witness. Because witnessing birth was as sacred as surviving it. No hospitals, just fire and instinct. The birthing room wasn't a sanitized suite. It was wherever they were, under a lean-to, inside a cave, maybe even in an open clearing. And the only constant was fire. Fire provided light, warmth, and a sense of control in an otherwise chaotic world. It also doubled as a crude form of sanitation. Heated water and tools, sometimes stones or wooden knives, were used to manage bleeding, sever the umbilical cord, or clean the area. There was no fetal monitor, no epidural. But there were herbs, some for pain, some to stop bleeding, others to calm the mind. Willow bark for pain, yarrow for blood, lavender for nerves. Early humans may not have known the science behind these plants, but through trial and error, they built a working pharmacy from the forest. The birthing positions? Not flat on the back. Squatting was most common, sometimes supported by a rock, a tree, or another person. It used gravity. It opened the pelvis. And it worked. Sometimes they knelt, leaned forward, even birth standing up. Labor was long, dangerous. Sometimes the baby came quickly, other times, it took days. But everything was guided by instinct, positioning, breath, timing. The rhythm of contractions mirrored the rhythm of nature. No clocks, just bodies, and when the baby finally came, wasn't caught in latex-gloved hands. It slid into fur blankets, animal hide, or the waiting arms of the tribe, covered in vernix, slippery, screaming, and alive. That scream wasn't noise. It was music, proof that the impossible had happened. What if something went wrong? Here's the darkest part of this story. Sometimes, the baby didn't make it. Sometimes, the mother didn't either. There were no surgical options. A breech baby feet, or buttocks first, was a nightmare scenario. If the baby became stuck, there was little anyone could do. If the mother hemorrhaged, the tribe tried to stop the bleeding with pressure, heat, or herbs. But often, nothing worked. These women didn't fear death. They expected it. They had seen sisters, mothers, and friends die during childbirth. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was chaos. And yet, there was dignity in death. When a mother passed, her body was often buried with care, wrapped in fur, placed with tools or beads. The baby, if it lived, was given to another woman to nurse. If it didn't, they were buried together. Grief wasn't hidden. It was held, sung about, painted onto cave walls. Death was part of the cycle, not a failure, but a reminder. Life was always borrowed, and survival was never guaranteed. These stories were told, not to scare, but to prepare. And that oral history is part of why you and I are here today. The first cry moment a baby was born, the tribe waited for one thing: sound. That first cry meant everything. It meant lungs were working, that life had arrived, that survival had a fighting chance. The baby wasn't wiped down with sterile towels. It was rubbed with animal fat to protect the skin and insulate against cold. The umbilical cord was cut with flint or obsidian and tied with sinew. And then, almost always, the baby was placed directly onto the mother's chest. Skin to skin wasn't invented by doctors. It's as old as birth itself. Breastfeeding began immediately. There were no bottles, no backups. The baby either latched or didn't survive. And because food was scarce, breast milk was a lifeline, not just for nutrition, but for immunity. It passed antibodies. It fought infection. It kept the baby alive in a world that wanted to kill it. Bonding was physical, constant, unbroken. Mothers carried their babies with them 24/7, tied to their chests, slung over their backs. Babies slept in fur, against skin, listening to the rhythm of a heartbeat they'd known in the womb. And even though there were no baby showers, no Instagram announcements, there was celebration. Quiet, sacred, primal. Because every new life was a reminder that their people would go on. Lessons from the ancients. It's easy to think of prehistoric humans as primitive. But the truth is, they were innovators, survivors, healers, and mothers. Were the ultimate foundation of that world. Today, we're rediscovering what they always knew. Squatting is now encouraged in modern birthing centers. Midwives are returning. Home births are rising. Skin-to-skin bonding is a global medical recommendation. Even herbal remedies like raspberry leaf tea or perineal massage are making a comeback. In our hospitals, with machines and monitors, we often forget the raw power of instinct. But it never left us. It's in our DNA. In every contraction, every deep breath, every heartbeat that speeds up when labor begins. We live in a world where birth is safer than ever. But that doesn't make it less miraculous. Because, even now, every birth is a brush with chaos, a primal dance between life and death. So next time you hear about a new baby, think about the fire-lit cave, the circle of women, the first cry echoing into the night. And remember, we're not separate from those mothers. We are them, just dressed in scrubs and hospital bracelets. Their blood runs in ours. Their strength brought us here, and their story deserves to be remembered. If this changed how you see the past, even just a little, share it. These ancient stories still matter. And if you want to dive deeper into the forgotten side of human history, subscribe. Because this is just the beginning.